1,000 feet above the earth, family walks across a glass bridge, then a crack, a fall, a nightmare in the sky. This is the terrifying, true-inspired story of how one family survived the collapse of a glass bridge in the mountains. Trapped in the Sky, a family's survival after a glass bridge collapsed in the mountains. Chapter 1. The trip of a lifetime. The Mendoza family had always been seekers of wonder. Every year, they traveled together, choosing destinations off the beaten path. In the summer of 2018, they chose China's famed Tianzhe Mountain. Not for the temples, not for the food, but for the bridge. It was the highest glass-bottomed bridge in the world, stretching 1,000 feet across a canyon, 600 feet in the air. A marvel of modern engineering, with thick panels of glass said to hold the weight of a truck. Online videos showed tourists screaming not in fear, but in awe. David Mendoza, the father, was an architect. The structure fascinated him. This is the future, he told his wife Maria. Beauty and strength working together. Maria wasn't convinced. She had a phobia of heights. Still, she agreed. Just one photo, she told herself. Then back on solid ground, their 3 children, Carlos, Lara, and Miguel, were buzzing with energy. Carlos had brought his GoPro. Lara wanted a new profile pic on the bridge. And Miguel, he just liked jumping. What none of them knew was that the storm the night before had caused minor hairline fractures in the panels. Reports were made. But someone decided to open the bridge anyway. Chapter 2. The Shatter. The Mendoza family stepped onto the bridge around 10:45 a.m. Tourists shuffled slowly ahead of them. Carlos walked backward, filming. David explained the structural supports. Lara leaned over the railing. Miguel, fearless, ran ahead, stomping on the glass. Then a sound. Crack. Time slowed. A sudden echoing noise like ice splitting on a frozen lake. A panel just beneath Miguel's feet gave way. Not completely, but enough to make everyone freeze. People screamed. David lunged forward, grabbing Miguel by the shirt just as 3 panels beneath him completely gave out. Miguel slipped, screaming, but was caught by the safety harness tied around his waist. Carlos dropped his GoPro. Lara clung to the railing. Maria's knees gave out. It wasn't just Miguel, a domino effect. Several panels buckled in the middle of the bridge. Tourists panicked, stampeding back toward the edge. Glass shattered further. Somehow, David held Miguel's dangling body. But Maria, Carlos, and Lara were caught in the collapse S-zone, too and soon, were dangling from their own safety cables. From calm to chaos in under 10 seconds. Chapter 3. Dangling between life and death, the wind picked up. The bridge swayed violently. 4 of the 5 family members now dangled mid-air, held by safety gear meant only for light emergency use. David, the only one still on solid glass, was on his knees, hands trembling. Miguel cried and screamed for his dad. Carlos tried to stay calm, telling his mom to breathe. Maria was hyperventilating. Below them, just forest. A 60-story drop. Bridge staff at the control tower saw the collapse and hit the emergency alert. Rescue was called, but they were remote at least 20 minutes out. David saw one of the metal bolts where Maria's cable connected to the frame start to bend under strain. Any moment now, it could give. He had to act. Chapter 4. Thinking fast. David scanned the bridge. He remembered seeing something earlier, small compartments along the edge marked in Chinese. He crawled carefully along the edge and pried open one of the boxes. Inside, a coiled emergency rope, a harness, steel carabiners. He grabbed what he could and scooted back to the anchor point. His hands were numb from the wind and fear, but he managed to clip the carabiner into a reinforced beam. "Maria, I'm lowering another rope," he shouted. She was pale, lips blue from shock, but she nodded and caught the rope. Slowly, she looped it around her waist, securing it with all the strength she had left. Then he sent the second rope to Carlos, who helped Lara tie it off. They were all secured, better than before. Then ping. The bolt holding Miguel's original harness snapped, dropped a few feet, but was instantly caught by the new rope David had secured only seconds earlier. It saved his life, but now they needed to be pulled up, and David had no winch, just his bare hands and a father's will. Chapter 5. Under the bridge, there was only one way. David would have to go under the bridge to manually pull them up. He clipped himself into the maintenance track beneath the bridge. The wind howled louder there. His shoes slipped on the wet steel. But he crawled, inch by inch, foot by foot, like a soldier in a war zone. Below him, Maria watched helplessly. Carlos whispered to Lara, "Don't look down." David reached the lower maintenance beam, sturdy enough to serve as a temporary platform. He tied off the ropes there and one by one began hauling them upward. Carlos first, then Lara, then Maria. It took everything he had. Could barely feel his arms by the time he reached Miguel. "Come on, buddy," he whispered. Almost there, he pulled. Miguel screamed in fear but climbed a little too. Then he was up. Safe. Cold. Shaking, but safe. They lay together, huddled on the maintenance beam under the bridge. Above them, the structure creaked. But below them, life still held on. Chapter 6. The final rescue at last. The low rumble of helicopter blades filled the sky. Rescue workers rappelled down in harnesses. They loaded the family into stretchers, one by one, winching them up to safety. Maria burst into tears as the helicopter lifted away. Lara held Miguel close. Carlos stared blankly at the cracked panels below. David was the last to leave the bridge. His hands were torn, his face smeared with dirt and tears. But he smiled when he finally joined his family in the sky. Below them, the bridge swayed alone. That evening, local authorities shut it down for good. Investigations found that the storm had loosened internal bolts and water had seeped into panel seams. The Mendoza family's case was cited in global news coverage. The footage Carlos had recorded went viral, over 100 million views in weeks. But no camera had captured what mattered most. Chapter 7. The aftermath. The Mendozas returned home a different family. Miguel refused to sleep alone for weeks. Maria couldn't cross high floors without holding on to something. David walked with a limp, the result of a strained tendon during the climb. Carlos stopped posting online. "Some things," he said, "aren't for the internet." But over time, they found healing in each other. In therapy, family dinners, in silence. David was interviewed months later. He said, "I used to design buildings. Now I design memories. And the best ones are made when you're lucky enough to survive the worst." Chapter 8. The fear that stayed. Years later, they returned to the mountains, not to the same bridge, but a different one. Solid stone, no glass. Miguel, now 14, stopped halfway across and looked over the edge. "I remember falling," he said quietly. David placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't fall," he replied. "You flew. We pulled you back." They stood there, letting the wind hit their faces. Fear never leaves, but it can be transformed. This story was inspired by real events. Some names and details have been changed for dramatic effect. While glass bridges are designed to meet safety standards, extreme weather and structural stress can cause unforeseen dangers. Always follow local warnings and safety precautions. Like this video? Smash that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe for more cinematic true stories that inspire shock and thrill. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a survival tale. Comment below. Would you ever step on a glass bridge again? Until next time, stay safe, stay grounded, and never stop telling stories.